Greetings, everyone. I'm excited to welcome Mark Boscher, founder and CEO at Unito, to the show today. Mark, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Well, thanks for coming on the show today. Let's kick this off. Tell us a little bit about your background in SaaS.
Yeah, sure. So I've been in tech for, I guess, since the first dot-com bubble. I guess now we're counting time in recessions. So 3 recessions ago or close, and mostly in the startup world, but started in SaaS in the third, I guess, adventure. We're doing digital signage for retail, and we had a SaaS content management system for the in-store displays, if you want. That was all web-based. But we also did like the backstore distribution servers, and then we designed and manufactured the hardware displays too. So it was everything in a box, I guess. Like we SaaS, servers, data centers, and then even like device hardware and manufacturing and all sorts of stuff. And yeah, I mean, it's hard to do any one of those. Like you just SaaS into the whole world there. And that was like everything, every kind of business in the same one. And then selling it to large telcos over really long sales cycles. So a lot of fun, a lot of learnings definitely in there. But SaaS, I think the depth of experience in SaaS has also been on the user side. I've been a big user of SaaS since like the beginnings of it, and a big believer in the model. I think it changes a lot because it removes so much friction from adoption. Like it removes the whole technological component to software adoption, and it leaves just the human side. So I've been a huge user of it and been in products throughout my entire journey in product leadership, product management. And the interesting bit about product is you have to work with everyone. You have to work with every department. You have like zero authority over anybody. So you have to use whatever tool stacks and whatever way each of these groups is organized, and often jump around from one to the other. So you get to interact with all sorts of stacks, all sorts of software, and you have to adapt to it. And I guess that's where the initial idea for Unito kind of came from, was this frustration of having to jump around all the time between whatever tool stack as a product person, whether to map roadmaps or to track work I was using compared to whatever all the other teams were using, and having to swap around, jump around, copy paste all the time. And I guess it's just gotten worse over time.
Yeah, wow, great background. And that was quite, the retail signage, digital signage, where it's like, SaaS, hardware, servers. Yeah, that had to be quite the experience.
Never again.
Yeah, never forget. Just focus on the SaaS side, right? The software side.
I'm sure as a finance guy, you're like, oh my God, inventory, and then also have to manage, NDR, and also like so many different financial models to track at the same time.
Yeah, a lot more revenue streams, a lot more margins to manage. So, really interesting. And then looking at your profile, your background is on, would it say the technical side, the engineering side?
I mean, I studied in engineering side, on the computer science side, but I've always been more on at the boundary of the technology side and the business side, right? Which is often where product kind of lies, and that's been my strength, I guess. The next logical step when you're going into founding a business, you're still at that boundary when you're working in tech, but now the product is the company as opposed to the product's company itself, right?
Yeah, that's great. So tell us a little bit about what Unito does.
Yeah, so at its core, it's a no-code integration platform, right? So a little bit similar to what you might have seen in a tool like a Zapier or Ocado on the more enterprisey side, but we allow very deep and seamless integrations between SaaS, while keeping it really easy for a business user to set up. And the way we see it is the last really big piece of friction in SaaS is integration. It's really easy to try SaaS, to adopt it, to roll it out, but it's still really hard to integrate them together deeply, at least without technical skills. So our claim to fame, if you want, is bidirectional synchronization among SaaS. And what that means is that you could be a marketing team living in Asana with your launch campaigns or marketing campaigns, and whenever you have to work with the web development team or product team that's organized in Jira, for example, we'll sync the tasks and issues across so that you'll have right into your marketing plan in Asana exactly what's happening on the development side. And you can actually interact with the developers back and forth And it feels to the developers like everyone's in Jira, and it feels to the marketers like everyone's in Asana. But Unito is the one doing that bridge behind the scene, and seamlessly. Or if you got your spreadsheet and you're trying to model a lot of projects and track finances across it, you have to go and jump around all the time asking people where they're at, or can you actually sync it all into your spreadsheet and have everything up to date in terms of time spent or progress on the reports?
Yeah, interesting. So your integrations, you don't really focus like, hey, we just do CRM integrations. Is it any sort of SaaS tool that then say could offers an API where you can then integrate, two solutions together?
Pretty much. And we started in the more project management, work management space and developer tools. But that's a big transition we did not that long ago, which is to open the platform much more broadly to any kind of data across any kind of SaaS.
Okay, really interesting. And then when did you found Unito?
So Unito started as a basement project in 2015, and started with just an MVP, launching it, and because it was a problem that we had experienced before, and it was really a scratch your own itch. Someone should solve this. So 2015, basement in Montreal, basically.
Interesting. And so did you quit a full-time job and say, hey, I'm going to start this? Did you say, hey, I'm going to incubate this in the basement while I'm working full-time and just see if anything will catch on?
Yeah, I was at an interesting transition out of that signage company, if you want, doing some consulting work. And I'd always been in the startup world, either as a founding team member or early employee, in the mindset of like, one day I'm going to start my own business. This is what I want to do. This is what I'm going to be good at. And of course, it always takes longer than you think. So it was like I'd been accumulating this bucket list of problems people should solve, and it was like, well, this is the time to jump off the cliff if you want. And so I tested a few ideas, and this was one of them. So that's how it kind of got into it, basically.
Okay, so Basement Project 2015 started the MVP. And then was it that same year where you went to market to try to sign up some of those initial customers? Or
well,
a
it
year
started
later?
With a kind of free version just to test the waters. We went to market in terms of generating charging for the platform in Halloween 2016, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So a little time, test it out with some free users, get that product feedback, and then start charging about a year later. So, okay. Yeah, interesting. And where are you located? I think you mentioned Montreal, but is that the headquarters?
Yeah, we're all based, actually, all the staff is based out of Montreal. We decided to go a little bit counter current in that sense, and really invest in the community. We're very flexible and hybrid in terms of work, but we like to keep the community close, or at least within distance, that they can get together quickly and invest in that aspect of community. It's one of our kind of three core pillars on the value side and the culture side.
Yeah, tell me more about when you say community, your staff base and like the Montreal tech community, or tell me more about that.
Well, when I'm talking about more staff based, all the staff, we see the company and every collaborator as really part of the community, and that's kind of a lot of the startup, attraction, is to be able to work very closely on an intense project with people that you get close with, and it's the opposite of transactional work in a way, right? And we wanted to invest a lot in that community and the sense of community that people develop inside of a company, and my co-founder and I had worked remote for a while. Eric, my co-founder, had worked for Microsoft in a distributed fashion for years, and we were like, hey, but that's before COVID, and also actually we'd like to go the other way around, and we kind of stuck to it through COVID, and now we're kind of seeing people who are kind of looking for that as well, especially since the pendulum swung so far out, during the pandemic.
Yeah. Okay. So HQ in Montreal. And then tell us, what's your team size right now?
We're just about to hit 70 people.
70 staff. Okay, great. And then anything you want to share around the scale, size, revenue, ARR of your company?
I mean, as much as transparency is like another core pillar in the company, we are keeping the metrics kind of close to our chest right now. But yeah, we're basically growing through expanding a lot of our connectors. And we are a PLG company, so it's mostly inbound based, and very kind of high volumes of trials every month.
Okay, so PLG inbound, and I think on your site, what about say user size or customers? How many users or customers?
I think on the website we're at 50,000 or something.
50.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think it said 50,000 plus
Yeah.
users. Okay, and then tell us. Okay, so targeting users. Tell us about your go-to-market motion. You said it. So right, PLG inbound. So are these signing up individual users, signing up companies, and then those users? So tell us a little bit about how the pricing and that go-to-market motion works.
Yeah, so we want the users to be able to experience the value of that integration themselves before they need to purchase or before they pull out a credit card or anything like that. So it's all about putting the product up front. So you can go in and connect up your applications in a few minutes. You authenticate whatever 2 apps, and within a few minutes, you've got data syncing kind of bidirectionally, and you can start playing around with it. So that motion is really important to us. What we'll see is people from very large organizations all the way to small organizations come in, just experience the value, and then either they can self-serve entirely into the product, or we do have kind of a sales assistance and CS team that is able to help people navigate it, whether they have a more complex procurement process or they want some more guidance. And that's been really important for us. Like, we're targeting the ease of use, but we also have people that are really experts in all the tools that we integrate, so they can guide the users and the customers in the best practices. Because often someone comes in, they're working with one team, they know exactly how that team works, what their tool stack is, but they're at the boundary, they have to work with these other people that are working differently in different tool sets, and they're looking for the best way to do that. So knowing that there's someone with it that's available within chat, or they can talk to their CSM and have that backup or that guidance to show them what is the best way to do it, how are all the other best practices or best companies in the market doing it, then they feel a lot more confident about rolling this out and convincing other peers to do it and things like that. So it's self-serve. We want people to be empowered. But we also want to give them the backing and the confidence that there's someone there to help if needed.
Okay, and PLG is such a hot term today. Traditional sales led, now we have PLG, maybe we have both. So what does PLG mean in the context at Unito? What does that mean when you guys talk about PLG?
Yeah, I think it's a new term to say something that's existed for a long time, just like so many of those terms, like probably SaaS, same thing.
Yeah.
So PLG for us is a bit what I was hinting at, is letting the customer or the user experience the value of the product before having to go through a purchasing process, as opposed to more traditional software sales where there's a sales pitch, there's like slides, there's checklist, there's are you in the quadrant, the Gartner quadrant, then there's a procurement or security, then there's an onboarding, and then maybe eventually the user experiences value. So if you flip this around, to me, that's what PLG is all about, right? Is how do you allow the user to experience the value up front? And then more concretely in the company, what that means is that we've structured the company accordingly. So marketing and product roll up to the same executive in the team, because marketing's role is really to bring people to experience the product's value. And then the sales and customer success, or the customer facing teams, are much more layered on top, if you want. And they're there to help and assist, as opposed to be the drivers and marketing being really, really tied directly to sales.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, because I think PLG can mean a lot of different things and maybe not standard definitions, but in your context, letting the customers experience the value of the product up front before going through that sales process, before they can even touch the product. And then interesting, as far as your org chart then with PLG, that you said your marketing and product leaders roll up to the same manager, executive.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, great. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. So you recently raised a 20 million Series B. How much capital have you raised to date?
We've raised about 33
million. Okay. And so with that $20 million Series B raise, what did you see? Were there milestones, triggers, intuition that said, hey, we're ready for this next raise and we can really put this capital to good work?
So remember, I was mentioning we started in a very specific set of software categories that we were integrating: project management, work management, developer tools. We expanded out into other categories and started getting traction there and really wanted to double down. So for us, it was, hey, like we've proven it on a smaller market if you want, but here's the opportunity that's suddenly expanding to every software category. How do we double down on this? And that's really the impetus for the fundraising. And that's what brought us there effectively.
Okay. And with that capital, is it then more on the engineering team deploying integrations into other, niches within SaaS? Anywhere else that you're investing or deploying that capital within your org?
Well, it'll be across the board. When we think of adding more integrations, it's not just the engineering side to it. It's also the content side, the go-to-market side. How do you package it and how do you present it to the user so that when they see it, they immediately make sense of it. It connects to their problems or their use cases. And again, I think that's key for PLG. You can't assume you're going to have always a demo or a sales rep to be able to connect with the customer and then pitch them, right? It has to be, you have to be there exactly when people are looking for something or sometimes not even aware there's a solution.
And that's a really interesting nuance or thing that you mentioned, I think. So with a PLG motion, right? All right, more integrations, expanding into, say, we went from, work, management into other stuff, say CRMs or whatever, but with that expansion of product, right? A tie that it creates now more of a content need, more of a marketing need, more of an educational need that you need with the PLG motion. Did I kind of summarize that correctly, or that insight?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, we have a very unique approach to integration and a very differentiated architecture with the bidirectional sync, and allows us to do a lot of things that are very different, but it is a noisy space in the integration space. But if you were to think about a more traditional business going into other geographies, right? You're not thinking about it's not just, there might be product with like internationalization or translation, but it's mostly go to market when you're thinking about it that way. When we think about new integrations and new categories, those are new geographies, if you want. They open up new markets for us. So there's an important go to market component to it as well. There's a whole partnership ecosystem there as well. There's potentially a different audience. So when we are thinking about that expansion, we are very systematic about it, and it's not just a product. It's really, there's a product, there's an engineering, and then there's a go-to-market component all tied together.
Okay, yeah. So it's not just, hey, engineers, dev team, let's just go crazy, build more product, but it's like the rest of the org has to follow along with that use of capital. So yeah, interesting. So raising 33 million to date. Any, for the founders, executives who are going through a fundraiser, thinking about it, any tips and tricks that you've learned along the way with raising capital?
Yeah, I mean, there's part of it that you're like, it's done, and you're like, you want to forget all about it, but that's really not how it works. I mean, from an early stage perspective, if you're a first-time founder, you don't necessarily have a network of investors or a proven track record, because we hear a lot about sometimes founders that just, they make a phone call and they've raised, or it sounds or it feels like that. And obviously that's not how it really works in reality. But I think when you're starting, you just got to get out there. You got to provoke serendipity, to happen, and it just won't happen if you're staying at home. So getting out there, going out to the places where there's going to be there's an ecosystem, there's going to be people, and just putting yourself out there. That's what triggers a lot of the first network building, and the first connections and the referrals to some investors. You got to get it started. It just doesn't happen on its own. And then the other one is just not giving up. And I think there's so many reasons for getting a no from an investor, and most of them have nothing to do with your business. Like, it could be the partner got up on the wrong foot that morning. I'm exaggerating, but there's so many forces at play, and so you just have to keep at it and don't try to interpret the reason they gave you for the no. But I think one realization was, always asking like, okay, tell me more. How can I learn out of this? But the reality is most of them, 90% of the reasons you get are canned reasons with the sole purpose of like getting this over with as soon as possible. So don't let yourself be pulled down by that no, or try to interpret that reason too literally, because it's not really that specific to your business.
I love that because you think, right, founders, like we want product feedback, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
and go to market feedback, you know, do we have product market fit? And then probably the same thing investing. Well, why do they say no? I need feedback. But you're right. It's like sometimes maybe it just didn't fit their model, no good reason. And we try to, yeah, like I said, over interpret or try to interpret, you know, what they said behind no, and there may not be any depth behind it.
You kind of see it once you've had a few and you're like, I've heard this one before. And then, or like if you write them down, you kind of see the patterns. And
Mhm.
I even heard it from some of our investors, like, no, like we like at that point, once we decide to pass, we're trying to move on as quickly as possible without closing the possibility
Mhm.
of in the future having an opportunity there. And
Yeah.
so it's like they have a few recipes that work for them. And that's all there is to it. And
Yeah.
that's okay. You know, you just don't try to fight it.
Yeah. 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 Thanks for sharing that insight. So as we wrap up here, what's next and exciting for Unito?
I mean, I was hinting at it earlier. For us, it's really expanding on the product side,
Mhm.
and be able to say kind of anything. We whether it's contacts, whether it's in your CRMs, whether it's Slack messages with your support team, support tickets, or just getting a bunch of data live into your master spreadsheets,
Mhm.
without having to export CSV, import CSV all the time, which I'm sure a lot of people end up doing. And then on the company side, I mean, we're growing as a business. We're growing conservatively in this environment in
Yeah.
particular, but I'm happy to be able to invest a lot in the diversity of the company. Our investors that led the round have their fund is diversity focused, and
Uh-huh.
they have specific targets in terms of diversity in the leadership, shareholders, and even board. And
Okay.
we already hit most of those requirements. So we have half the executive team is women. We have
Mhm.
transparent salaries. So happy to continue really investing in that culture and building a great company.
Okay. Yeah, that's great to hear. So really appreciate your time today, Mark, and sharing your story and about Unito. So what if the listeners want to learn more about your company, where should we send them online?
Unito.io. And obviously, you can find us a lot in the integration directories of your tools, whether it's in the
Hmm.
Google Workspace Marketplace, or Trello integration directory, or HubSpot integration directories of your favorite tools.
Oh,
And
perfect.
Glassdoor, have a look at a
Yeah,
5-star rating if you're interested in joining a cool company.
that sounds great. And that's UNITO.
Correct.
.io. Okay.
That's
Okay.
right.
Just want to make sure. So, all right, check them out at unito.io. And Mark, really appreciate your time today and sharing your story.
Thank you.